the notion that the county has signed on to go in that direction, to have county-owned assets at any scale that encompasses a fiber to the home system is new and a huge win.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I'm speaking with Shana Englund, the Director of the Digital Equity Initiative at CCF, which is the California Community Foundation. Welcome to the show, Shana.
Thank you, Chris. Excited. I feel a little bit like a celebrity because I've been listening to so many of these podcasts.
I was just going to say you're totally unfamiliar with the format. Shana, you and I have been, I think, in frequent contact. You're doing great work in California. We're trying to support it, trying to help you out in some ways, also learning a lot about what's possible. And I'm definitely outsourcing my California brain to you and trying to understand some of this stuff rather than just diving in and reading all the rules myself, which I should be doing, but just there's no time for it. So, but let me ask you, this is, you're not one of the new people in telecom. You're one of those folks that I think was in it, and then you took a little hiatus, and now you're back because it's the best thing ever. But, tell us your backstory quick.
Because it's like the mob. Once you're in, you can't get out. Yeah, no, I've been working on broadband issues off and on since 2005. So what is that? 17 years. And really always in the context of I started as a community organizer and then did political campaigns, and then really was working at the intersection of tech and politics and civic engagement. And so either directly or indirectly have kind of been engaging on this connectivity issue for the better part of my career.
And you've also been thinking about communications, and that's, I think, technically what your LinkedIn profile might say, right?
I don't know. I should go check what my LinkedIn profile says. It should say something like strategic campaigns, or right, like on LinkedIn it has to say strategic somewhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do campaigns, and I think a lot of times what that means is thinking about comms in all the various ways.
So I think, they say if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a big group. You're now with a big group. You're doing interesting work. You're putting together a really great effort there with different groups working together in LA County. What are you doing at the California Community Foundation?
So the Digital Equity Initiative is, as far as I can tell, a very unique project that I am so lucky to lead, that is putting resources towards building and seeding an ecosystem of digital equity champions. And really also including within that the access and infrastructure component of this question. So we have set out to, through grant making, public education, engaging in advocacy, kind of pulling in national, state, and other local networks and experts like yourself and your colleagues there into really building community power around this issue. And so we've got education organizations, healthcare organizations. We have climate justice. We are about to pull in a big immigration organizing group that are interested in figuring out how to work together to address this kind of really cross-sectoral equity issue.
Are there any signs that it's working?
So many.
Has your house been a target of arson?
Not yet.
No, now you're thinking about it though.
No, but every time our internet goes out when we're watching Netflix, he blames me. Yeah, I mean, we had really back in August, we had what I would call the first of what have been many, in some cases surprising but exciting wins. So we have the LA Deal, which it's the LA Digital Equity Action League, which is a regional broadband consortium, which is an officially sanctioned, appointed, funded organization of the California Public Utilities Commission that is intended to connect local communities, municipalities with the funding programs that are available through the Public Utilities Commission.
California like has a bunch of money that it collects to deal with inequities in telecom, and that's dealt with through the California Public Utilities Commission, which created the California Advanced Services Fund that's involved with that. And
Yes.
they created the idea of these regional groups that would then help to make sure that people actually knew how to use this money and access it. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yes, thank you for backing up. Yeah, through the California Advanced Services Fund is funded by fees through various telecom, and then that itself is split into a whole bunch of accounts, and one of them is this regional broadband consortium account.
Unless anyone thinks I know more about this than you do, the only reason I know what I just said is that you told me right before we started recording.
Fair. Okay. So, if I am about to say something that contradicts something I told you before, I was right before. So, remind me. But so most of these regional broadband consortiums have been, largely taken over by incumbent ISPs, because everything through the Public Utilities Commission is really complicated. There's a complicated application procedure there. It's complicated to get money after you're funded, all of the things. And so typically these consortia around the state are kind of arms and legs for incumbent ISPs. And there's one in Northern California that isn't, and in LA. We wanted ours to not be. And so we partnered with the LA Economic Development Corporation and an education organization called Unite LA to put together an application that was going to be community-driven, community-based. We were up against the standard industry-funded application. It had a lot of advantages going in, including having someone who's kind of like on the inside at the PUC, trying to block them from being able to apply, trying to change deadlines, all kinds of things. But we won. And so we have one of two consortium within LA that is a community-driven instead of an industry-driven regional broadband consortium that is a kind of direct connect to the PUC. And that has really wide-ranging implications that have continued to ripple and enable us to have even more wins.
Yes, I mean, I think it's nice when the state is making money available to try to solve a problem if the people actually trying to solve the problem are the ones distributing some of that money.
Weird, right? It's great.
Absolutely. So that was, I mean, I think that was like one win that you described as, unexpected. I think one of those things where you kind of find out about it last second and all of a sudden you have to know what's going on. And then you're like, wow, we're winning. And then someone tries to take it away and you have those nights of, are we really going to lose this? And then you win it.
Well, you might remember the day of the very first Digital Equity Initiative cohort convening, which was last August. And you were there.
Yep.
We were downtown LA, and it was the day of the PUC vote on this on who was going to get the RBC appointment. And literally that morning, we were getting intel that the kind of industry group was driving letters from like local electeds that they had relationships with, urging the PUC not to vote on it, or if they did vote on it, to not award it to the LA deal. Like as of that morning, it wasn't super clear what was going to happen. And that vote happened while we were meeting. And so we actually got to celebrate that win together as a baby cohort.
and I feel like it wasn't too long after that there was a measure that came up before the LA County commissioners. And I think it may be worth just briefly reminding people that LA County is possibly the mightiest political organization in the United States of America that would be called a local government. It's huge. It's, it's bigger than most states, I think, not just some states, but I think most states. Is that right? So just to people have a sense, what is LA County?
So LA County is 10 million people, has just for the county a $36 billion annual budget. Within the county, there are 88 independent cities, and 65% of the county is unincorporated. So it is a massive, massive endeavor. And we have the two largest ports in the country, so something more than 50% of economic activity that comes in or out of the country goes through one of two ports in Los Angeles. So it is certainly should be a state of its own and arguably a country.
It would not surprise me if it was double digits percentage of the amount of concrete in the United States of America.
That could be, although, you know what? I am not going to endorse that stereotype because we also have lots of green.
Yes, yes, absolutely. But so the county commission is going to take up a resolution with 3 points on it, and I felt like, again, from my perception, there's they have 3 votes they're going to have, and we're kind of thinking, all right, like let's not lose all of them, right?
I mean, yeah. So we had the county board had a resolution in front of it, and again, just as a sense of scale. So there are 5 county board members representing all 10 million LA County residents. So these are folks who have just again a massive footprint, and they had directed sort of a largely unknown division, the internal services division of the County of LA, to come back to them with a report of what could be done with existing county resources and assets to solve the digital divide. And the Selwyn Hollins, who is terrific, came back to them and said, well, here's 3 things we could do. One is we could shovel money at the incumbent ISPs and essentially like buy contracts, buy broadband service for some set of people. He went out to the incumbents and said, like, this is roughly the pricing and how many people we could serve for how long with that approach. Approach 2, we could put together a community Wi-Fi mesh network using county assets. So think libraries, county buildings, power poles, like all kinds of other things. And that we could put together, again, we could, before the end of the year, have free service to somewhere upwards of 12,500 households who currently have no service at all. And here's what it would cost. And then the third piece is we could start down the path of a community-owned fiber to the home network and really start to think about what that would look like. And yeah, we were going into, again, because all of this is so deeply understandable, Viva Good Government, the way that this kind of policy winds its way through is it's called an ops cluster meeting.
Right.
Super clear.
Yeah, one of those every Friday.
Every Friday, that is, county board staff and historically lobbyists. Because they're the only ones who actually can be paying attention to this, and it's their job to show up at the ops cluster meeting. So when we were going into this ops cluster meeting thinking that we were hoping to be able to win on the community network, we were hoping but thought we probably were going to lose on the fiber to the home. And we thought we were pretty sure we were just going to have to hold our nose on just shoveling money to the ISPs. And we hoped we could at least just have some influence on kind of what the parameters of what that might look like.
Well, I was just going to say, so there's a quick pause here for dramatic effect. People, we say the ISPs, the incumbents. I mean, we're largely talking about Charter and AT&T, I think, for the most part. Yeah. Although Frontier is in some areas. Verizon's still a power, even though they sold their plant to Frontier a long time ago. But they still have wireless services that are available, and they still are quite big players. Is there anyone else?
Nope, that's it. I mean, it's largely Charter and AT&T. Frontier has just a small enough footprint. They don't really show up a lot in these spaces in LA. And then Verizon shows up a lot. And their primary argument is that, essentially cell services broadband, and we should think about it as an alternative.
Right. I assume they don't literally say, hey, we talked about how all these people were going to have connections and we only signed up 172,000, but we might do more at some point. So we should all get tons of money. They don't present it that way.
No, interestingly. Weird, huh?
So anyway, those are the cast of characters that are usually there. So you decide that hey, let's make a thing of it.
Yes. And just to be clear on to kind of set the room. So Charter has 4 dedicated lobbyists just for the county that show up to everything. Just Charter, for the county. So there's a massive force here.
There's been times when I go to one of these meetings in the evening and I'm like, I'm here on my own time because I'm already past 40 hours for the week. That person's either getting overtime or getting paid a huge salary to come to this. It's just
no, they're not underpaid. They're not underpaid.
Right.
We don't feel bad for them.
Right. But I also just want to say one other thing too, and that's that when I say, whenever I say, what did you do? I also make it clear, it's what did the coalition do?
Yes.
Because I know that you're careful not to either take credit or, these things have to be locally rooted in order to succeed. So.
Always. Yeah. No, and anytime, and just to be clear, anytime I'm saying I or we, it's not me. It's this group of really kind of amazing activists and leaders that have stepped up to the plate on this. I support them, but these are their wins. So we, in that context, turned out, I think we ended up with 27 people at the ops cluster meeting, all ready to raise their hands and speak up from shared kind of talking points and urgings. And we ended up kind of swamping the ISP voices in the room and changed the trajectory of how that went. And in the end, the just throw money at the ISPs option wasn't fully adopted. What the board ended up saying was the Internal Services Division, Selwyn, is authorized to go negotiate for contracts and bring those proposed contracts back to the board to vote on specifically. So that's a huge win. Mm-hmm. We won outright on the community wireless network, and we won outright on the fiber to the home study as well. So it came out of that ops cluster thinking like hopefully on one, maybe on two, and like third is the last cause with like we won across the board. And then that went to the board vote, and we won unanimously. And again, that was one where we did not expect to win unanimously. We thought for sure it was going to be 4-1 at best. And it was 5-0.
So this is the power of showing up, doing your homework, showing up. 27 people,
and I would
right?
say like that is the theme, right? That's true at the county. It's been true as we've been starting to work more locally, and it has definitely been true at the Public Utilities Commission. To date, we'll find out how true it is on a hopeful vote tomorrow. And it has been true as we've been really working in the legislature. What we've been hearing from staff and legislators is that, they're hearing voices and stories that they've not heard before on this issue, and that does make a difference.
And when we talk about LA County studying a fiber to the home proposal, at least I interpret that as trying to figure out what would make sense. I don't think anyone really anticipates that the county would be able to, get the agreement of every last jurisdiction within the county to work together on a fiber network. It's more like, I think, looking
that
opportunistically.
That would be magical.
Right. I think it's more like opportunistically to areas that need it. Right.
And the RFP for like the details of that study are still in development. But I think kind of the big picture vision is for that to look at what really are the potential options, right? Like it could be that there's some hybrid of the county works with as many cities that are willing and interested to build a kind of a wholesale network that is also maybe some of the cities could operate on as ISPs, right? It could be, just building out to areas that aren't covered and maybe taking advantage of some of the like federal funding account. Again, like an account within CASIF, which I know we're going to talk about, some of that last mile money to do that in unincorporated areas. Like I think that there's a lot of leeway into it. But the win is just the notion that the county has signed on to go in that direction, to have county-owned assets at any scale that encompasses a fiber to the home system is new and a huge win.
Yes. And the wireless option that you talked about is being implemented, and there's right now they are seeking respondents to a request for qualifications, I think is what it is. And so that is available, and it was a good read. It's pretty impressive what they're doing. For people who are familiar, it's actually, I think, the last appendix on one of the things is the part you're looking for as to like what the plans are actually. So if you want to dig around, look for the last appendix. It might be like R or something like that.
And I love this because this has the potential to go from an organizing political win, what was that, last October, to the timeline is that the first people to get service off of this will be as soon as this October. So to go from kind of early policy win and a year later to have people actually having their needs met is lightning fast and really exciting.
Excellent. Now, as part of all this work, you've had to also become an expert in general on what California is doing with the federal broadband money, but also money that Governor Newsom had set aside for broadband before it was clear how much of the federal money would be coming in. The very impressive vote from the legislature in California to between the governor's office and legislature to appropriate money for broadband. But we don't have time to explain all of it. But how is some of that money being spent in ways that you want to highlight?
3.25 billion of it was going to an open access public middle mile network. Sort of like with regional broadband consortiums that we talked about earlier. It starts out as at the big level, potentially transformative and very progressive. The devil is going to be in those details in terms of how much of it ends up being built or bought and actually a public asset versus how much of it's going to be leased. And again, ultimately just kind of shoveling money to private providers that we kick down the road to 20 years from now when those leases are up. But we'll see, and that's still kind of an active fight, but that really does have potential to be transformative. And then there's $750 million of the loan loss reserve fund, which hasn't even started on rulemaking yet, but also has potential to really allow especially smaller localities that can't serve as their own bonding agencies and things to access funding and to be able to build out capital.
I think those rules are going to be written over the summer, right? And into August,
yeah, I think so. That's so many moons from now, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know how many of us are going to be around still when that happens.
I mean, listen. And then there's $2 billion of it that was for last mile funding, and that is how the state appropriated the federal recovery money, and so it's $2 billion in funding for last mile projects, split $1 billion between urban counties and $1 billion in rural counties. And that is money that is all subject to rules set by the Treasury Department. That is also in rulemaking. We have final rules, hopefully will be voted on tomorrow. They were supposed to be voted on April 7th.
Which, depending on when you listen to this, we're recording this on the 20th. We're expecting the rules to be voted on the 21st. People will be listening to this after that, and so we'll have to check out some sort of online resource to figure out what happened.
We'll come back.
We have a temporal.
Check Chris's Twitter.
We have a temporal abnormality right now.
So 2 weeks ago, the industry successfully derailed that vote. In order to buy themselves time to remove some really very reasonable affordability protections that are written into that. But we have been fighting back and hope that the vote will happen tomorrow, which will mean that, again, that $2 billion we can start to think about how that's going to be deployed. Hopefully it'll have the affordability protections intact. And then a bunch of other things that are in that are not, I'm sure they're controversial, but are not up for debate right now, are really exciting. They expand the definition of eligible area to something that is going to be much less messable with from the incumbent ISPs. Going to be less able for them to argue that no, we totally serve this, because it comes down to a location level. It makes the challenge process where ISPs can challenge grants going to municipalities much harder for them to win or even to bring. And so it focuses on unserved and underserved. It provides all kinds of a preference for municipal Joint Powers Authority, which is a weird California organization that allows government agencies to work together, for co-ops, for nonprofits. It just allows for a lot more flexibility for those kinds of organizations to do work here. And actually doesn't just allow it, but it preferences them in terms of the kind of how the points are allocated in the applications. So it's exciting. It's going to pass, one way or another. These rules are going to be adopted. Hopefully, when people are listening to this, they have been adopted with some really important affordability protections intact.
And just to drill in that for a second, California is proposing that if you take this money to build a network, you have to have as one of your options a $40 month option that will provide at least 50 megabits down, 50 megabits up. It's one of those things that I feel like is really good. I mean, none of these things are super easy, and none of them come without trade-offs. But one of the things that I think is interesting is that, a company like AT&T or Frontier, yes, absolutely, they should be forced to do this. Some of the concern I always have is with smaller companies you only have a few independent telephone companies, you have the electric co-ops, and I hope that the PUC understands that if they're going to have that requirement, which again I think is totally sensible, that it may have to offer higher levels of support to the rural networks to make sure that they're able to cash flow still, because $40 a month takes a long time to pay off an expensive network build to a house.
Well, so the interesting thing about this is this money covers 100%.
That still boggles my mind. I still every time I see that, I'm like, that's a misprint.
No,
why would it be
100%?
Is that something that you think is a good idea? I feel like there's some serious trade-offs with that. Because I'm super annoyed whenever I see Frontier or Charter getting an award with public dollars to build a 100% supported network. I'm just like, no, I want some skin in the game, even if it's a local government that I love. I think there's got to be skin in the game.
Yes and no. I think there are kind of a bunch of things at play, and as you said, there are trade-offs, right? One is that I think when we say, okay, you are applying for funding to build this network to serve an area that has either been chronically unserved or chronically underserved, we're going to make it as easy as possible and as straightforward as possible to get that access built. And that looks like streamlining the funding as much as possible. Right. So as soon as you start to say, well, you need to find matching funds, or there's, bonding, or, whatever else, it adds a fair amount of complication, and I think makes it more difficult, and probably slows it down quite a bit. So, in the interest of just getting things built and as streamlined and quick a way as possible, I think that kind of 100% funding makes total sense. I also like it, and we'll see how this ends up playing out. But it also means that you can actually put a bunch more of those public interest requirements on that money. And so is it true that it would probably be unreasonable to say a $40 a month 50 symmetrical offering has to be included on this infrastructure for the life of the infrastructure if you weren't taking care of the kind of capital expenses and the debt around that are normally on the balance books? Sure. In this context, there is no universe in which any system, any good system, should be able to operate profitably without capital expenses, with just maintenance and operating.
So honestly, then, now knowing that deeper picture, the only thing I can imagine is that the cable and telephone companies are really against this because of the threat of the good example, because they know that if there's 2 million people and they're only paying $40 a month to get this pretty high speed connection comparatively, 50-50 over a fiber network is really better than many people experience on a much faster claimed cable network. They know there's going to be political pressure to say, why do the people living over there get such a great deal, and we pay 3 times that amount, in the year 2025 for this craps connection that I have. So yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that the cable and telephone companies probably recognize that it's a real threat to them, that just people knowing that you can get great service at an affordable rate.
Well, I think there are a few things going on there. One is, yes, of course, if you actually demonstrate the insane finances of broadband and how the profit margins must work, right? If that can be profitable, I do think that opens up a lot of questions that the incumbent ISPs don't want to answer. But there's also the reality that the big incumbent ISPs almost never participate in these projects, right? I think Charter, which their chief government relations person, said in a hearing a few weeks ago that they had invested $1 billion in capital in California. And in the same breath, we're really excited about the $13 million that they had in CASIF funding. And then they even had to return some of that because they couldn't complete the projects. I mean, they just the amount of and Charter's one of the only of the big ISPs that actually participates in these projects. The reality is that where they're coming from is if these smaller networks end up being profitable and successful, which they will, down the road, these larger networks will try to purchase them. And given that the policy says for the life of the infrastructure, that means that when they purchase them with these public interest provisions intact, and they don't want to have to meet those public interest provisions down the road. And so, I think they're trying to avoid that reality. Which, again, I think a hard thing about talking about all of this stuff is it's complicated, and you have to it's 10 steps down the road, right? Well, so why should we care about that? Well, here's the thing. If Charter buys this like small municipal network that was built with public dollars down the road because it's profitable, you're still spending a bunch of public money on private profit. It's just down the road, right? And so you should still actually have those public interest provisions intact. It's not like they put that money back into the state coffers. Like, that's just not how that works. So that's one. I think a second is that, and I'm going to try not to curse on your podcast, but it's BS, right? Like, at a basic level, it's BS. Like, these companies are already providing faster service for lower prices. They're just providing them in wealthy areas. So as part of our work on this, we did an analysis where an analysis sounds like a very formal thing, a formal way to describe what I'm about to tell you. So we looked at some of the counties in California, and we organized within some of the bigger cities in those, organized census blocks by poverty rate. And then we picked literally at random a residential address within some of the high poverty census blocks and some of the low poverty census blocks. And what we found nearly universally, for Charter and AT&T for sure, Comcast actually was less egregious on this, was that we found things like in Beverly Hills, famously one of the wealthiest zip codes in all of California, and in fact in all of the country. They're offering their 400 megabit service with no data caps for $45 a month. And they're offering gigabit service for, again, no data caps for $80 a month. And those are 2-year promotional rates. In the 2 miles away, 3 miles away, in some of the poorest and highest poverty census blocks, they are offering that same 400 megabit service for $65 a month, and they are $70 a month. They're offering the gigabit service for $90 a month, and those are just 1-year promotional rates. And that plays out again and again and again and again. And so it is already true that these companies are offering fast, affordable internet. They're just not offering it to the people who actually need the affordable rate. And then the third piece is that I think it's important, and that'd be really interesting to see how this all plays out. But they're trying to make an equity argument around this by saying, oh, well, this should be means tested. Like, if you're going to require an affordable, fast option, the only people who should get access to that are people who qualify, which I just think is so interesting because, I tell you what. We can start to do that as soon as you start to have to show your 1040s in order to shop at the dollar store, right? Or if you have income above a certain level, you're not allowed to buy the want to getaway fares on Southwest. It's just it is weird to me that it has so much traction to suggest that in a fast, affordable option should not be available to everyone. And if you can afford to pay more for more service, you probably will. You almost certainly will. And if not, you have the bare minimum.
The unspoken idea, I think, is that for middle income families, that competition would drive the price down. And obviously we know that it happens in some cases, but usually what happens is that one of those companies gets bought by the other or something like that, or the competition is pretty ephemeral, and then it moves on, and then you have people that are locked into the monopoly prices, and then before too long they'll be paying more than $100 a month.
On another podcast, we can totally nerd out on the history of franchises in California and sort of how that happened. But this is a case where, the companies literally did just sort of go through the state and flip franchises to create monopoly. And when you kind of look again through the places where that happened, you have places like in San Diego County, Oceanside. Technically, AT&T and I think Cox is there, but the way that they ended up splitting it up is like you can get extremely crappy, very expensive service from AT&T, and like you can actually get pretty good, affordable-ish service from Cox. But it's the way that they sort of split up the franchises in the areas and where they serve that that causes that to be true. So it's effectively a monopoly, certainly a monopoly for anything you would want.
Right. The last thing that I want to raise is something just building off of you. I think it'd be awesome to get the CEO of like In-N-Out Burger or one of the larger California franchises to have a statement, like whenever Comcast or Charter, who are the ones that do it the most often, sometimes AT&T will be like, we've invested $1.5 trillion over the last like 106 years that we've run this company in these areas. And I just want In-N-Out Burger to stand up and be like, we've invested like this much and we demand that you close down the food pantries, like yes. We pay our workers $20 an hour and like here you have volunteers giving out free food in competition with us. It's ridiculous and it has to stop.
I mean, that is the corollary, for sure.
This has been a fun conversation. They always are.
Always.
So thank you so much, Shana, for sharing that. I think it's going to be interesting if we can see some other states picking up here and getting some good ideas from California and moving forward with them. But I think it is wonderful to have really positive things to say about California and the legislature. I mean, there's certainly some criticisms that we have here and there, but like this is a state where AT&T was super dominant for so long. It is a big deal that the legislature is actually doing something in the public interest on this issue because not enough people vote on it, not enough people are paying attention, and any win that we get in these legislatures, we need to celebrate. So thanks for being so involved.
I think it's important to also celebrate and note that it is also a big deal that organizations like, Great Public Schools Now in LA, which is an education organization, has absolutely stepped forward and invested resources in really being leaders on this issue and educating all of their kind of parents and kids and teachers on how to speak up for themselves here, or the Community Clinics Association, which has also done the same. I think that is also a win, and one of the things that is making this moment different is that it is, even while the kind of politics and politicians I think are going to stop caring as much about this in short order, the digital divide is going to stop being a thing we talk about in short order. I think it's going to be because those local leaders have really stepped up with and for their communities in ways that at least I haven't seen before in doing this work. And I think it's really exciting.
Yes, I think it's another model for hopefully other communities to emulate. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Chris.
We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle's @muninetworks. Subscribe to this and other podcasts from ILSR, including Building Local Power, Local Energy Rules, and the Composting for Community podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount keeps us going. Thank you to Arnie Huseby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. This was the Community Broadband Bits podcast. Thanks for listening.